Hello, good day. Before we go to our main topic, let us first talk about a little bit about what is dispute or what is conflict. Conflict is defined as argument or disagreement or controversy, which often give rise to a legal proceeding. So whenever two group of people are in disagreement with each other because of an event or probably an opinion or somebody hurt the other, so that is already considered as disagreement or dispute. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do whenever there is conflict? So in the past, human being has crafted a lot of ways on how to settle dispute. And in the past, probably 100 years, um, you hear people saying, see you in court. So it's like a trend for all of us human that whenever we have a conflict, what we know is the court will be the one to settle a dispute. That is why we always say, see you in court. So, what is planted in our mind is the only way to solve our dispute is the court. The judge will be the one to decide for us. However, thankfully, there are those people who have questioned the status quo. They were thinking of, is there something else we can do to settle dispute? Is there other way besides going to the judge to decide our case? And they found out something else, and we call it now as alternative dispute resolution. So it is called alternative dispute resolution because it is an alternative to what is a practice for several years. So now, what is a dispute resolution? So there are many ways how to settle a dispute. And however, before thinking of um, this alternative dispute resolution, it is still much better that we have to do something to prevent the dispute. As much as possible, we have to do everything in our power to prevent a conflict or dispute. But more often, it's hard. We cannot actually prevent this conflict or dispute. It's always there, and it's like a part of human being. So, if we can't prevent, what are we going to do? As I've said earlier, probably we think of court, but there are other ways. So, the common thing we actually do is we negotiate, right? Or what else? We mediate, we do conciliation. So these are what we call as alternative dispute resolution. So let's continue talking about the first one. What is it? The negotiation. So whenever you are in conflict with someone, what will you do first? Are you going to think of, I hope, I wish somebody is here to settle our conflict? Most likely, you don't. You wanted to settle right away. So that is what we call as negotiation, right? So whenever, for example, you have encountered a problem with your fellow driver on the road, you bump each other, and you don't want that you will be disturbed. So what you should do is to negotiate, right? So that is the very first thing we do. And in alternative dispute resolution, we don't only do negotiation. There is also what we call as arbitration. So what is this arbitration? So arbitration is similar to the court, wherein the two parties will choose what we call as an arbitrator who would act as a judge. So the job of an arbitrator is similar to the judge in the court. However, in arbitration, they don't follow strictly the rules laid down by the courts. So arbitration can be much more flexible than the court. So the similarity, however, is in arbitration, once the parties submitted their arguments, their documents, their evidences, the arbitrator will decide the outcome of the case. But it's not necessarily to be done in court. The arbitration can be done mm, anywhere according to what is agreed by the parties. So there's a second one, form of alternative dispute resolution. We negotiate, or if not, we can ask the help of a third party who will decide our conflict. So that's what we call as arbitration. And once the arbitrator decided the outcome of the conflict, he would issue a document which we call as award or arbitration award. What else? What else are the form of alternative dispute resolution? Another is or the steps. So usually what they do here is the mediator begin talking, such as probably start with an opening statement like introducing both parties, the mediators, the people involved, the reason why they are in the mediation process, and also including there the laying down of rules in the mediation process. So usually in the Philippines, the mediation is being facilitated by a lupong tagapamaya. I mean, the chairman or the barangay chairman, or we call them barangay captain. So they are the one who is usually the mediator. But outside of the barangay, the mediator can be appointed by the respective agency or respective institution, such as in the court. It could be appointed by the Philippine Mediation Center. So that depends on where the mediation can be conducted. But let's talk about the barangay. So as I've said, the barangay captain is the one who will mediate the case in the barangay. So he would start with the laying down of rules, and then afterwards the parties will be given opportunity to air also their concerns, their complaints, and then likewise the respondent will also respond, and then they will, rebut each other, presenting their concerns as well. And then next thing there is, if there is a heated argument going on, there will be what we call as private caucuses, where the two parties will be separated in two different rooms, and so that the party will have the opportunity to discuss further on what would be uh, the best agreement. And then next is they will come back again. So the two parties, in conflicting parties, will again talk about their problems, and then the last would be coming up with an agreement, or what we call as closure. So whatever they have agreed upon will be considered final and executory. So after which they will furnish a copy to the municipal office, stating therein the agreement of two parties. So that is in the barangay. Uh, However, if ever they failed to agree, they failed to come up with an agreement, the barangay captain will refer the case to the lupong tagapamayapa, which we call as the conciliation process. So the conciliation process is done by the third party, but in the case of the Philippines, conciliation is, as I've said, is facilitated by the lupong tagapayapa, or we call them as the lupon, where there will be three members of the lupon to be formed, which we call as the pangkat tagapagkasundo, to facilitate the negotiation, the resolution of the conflict of two parties. So usually composed of three, with a chairman and a secretary. So the role is still similar to the mediator. So, however, in mediation, the role of the mediator is simply to facilitate the discussion. So, meaning just to help the parties come up with an agreement. In conciliation, they provide advice. Conciliators provide advice. So usually composed of three, so conciliators. Meaning the role is to not only to facilitate but also to provide advice and to provide also possible solutions. So meaning they can involve deeper in the resolution of the conflict. Unlike in mediation where the mediator will just facilitate or act like a referee. But in conciliation, there is an extent or level of participation in the resolution of the conflict, because the conciliators may suggest, may recommend, may reprimand, may get angry to the conflicting parties, and they can influence the decision as well. So that's the difference between mediation and conciliation. So in our country, there are those agencies responsible in promoting the practice of mediation. So the mediation is not only done in the barangay, it can be done also in the court. Not only in court or barangay, it can be done also somewhere else. So for example, in the case of conflict between McDonald's, for example, McDonald's and Jollibee, if they have conflict, they don't need to go to barangay or to court. They can simply refer their case to a recognized mediation organization or institution. So, however, as I've said, it's not only barangay, but even in the court, there is also mediation. We call that as court annex mediation. Even if the case is already in the court, mediation can still be practiced. So, who is in charge of the training or accreditation of a mediator, if ever there will be mediation in the court? So we call the in charge in the Philippines is the Philippine Mediation Center. So what's the role? The role is to train those who will be mediator. They accredit also the institution who can train the would-be mediator, and as well as they are also in charge of supervising how the mediation is being done in the court. So That's the role of the Philippine Mediation Center. In other uh, places or venue, for example, in the barangay, or the case of McDonald in Jollibee, who is going to ensure that the mediator are well trained or valid or accredited? It's the Office of the Alternative Dispute Resolution under Department of Justice. So the role of this OADR is to uh, ensure and promote the practice of OADR in the Philippines. For example, in the case of McDonald and Jollibee, where will they get their mediator? So the OADR uh, will recognize, train, who would be also their mediator. For example, McDonald and Jollibee, the OADR recognized the Philippine Chamber of Commerce as the source of mediator. So whenever the McDonald and Jollibee decided that they will mediate their conflict, then the Philippine Chamber of Commerce will provide them uh, a mediator. But before that, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce should have been recognized, accredited by Office of the Alternative Dispute Resolution. So in the case of barangay, uh, the OEDR is the one in charge also of training uh, the mediator as well as conciliators. So that is what we do here in our country. Now, um, what are the advantages of using alternative dispute resolution? So in the Philippines, um, as I've said earlier, we are always thinking of court whenever we are in conflict with someone else. But there are other ways. It is already proven that alternative dispute resolution can be a tool in resolving our conflict. So first is it's fair because every party will be given an opportunity, whether you are poor or rich. You don't need to even if you have no intelligent lawyer, you can still have the opportunity to raise your concern. It's faster, unlike in the court where you need to spend years or months and years before you can finish or settle a conflict. But in the ADR, you can finish it in a day or even an hour. So confidentiality is one. So if you are in conflict with someone, only two of you are going to talk about it. And it's informal, so you don't need to follow your honor, or you need to stand when the judge arrives. And definitely, it will declog the courts because in our country, courts are already clogged with so many cases, and it burdens too much our justice system. So if we use alternative dispute resolution, then we can reduce cases in court. It's flexible because you don't need to go to court if you are in conflict with someone in very far place. You can just probably settle your conflict to your own will. For example, you want to settle it in Jollibee or in a restaurant. That's it. It's flexible. You want to settle it on the mountain. You don't need to wear good clothing. So it's very flexible. It's voluntary, meaning you don't need to force someone. So in ADR, if you don't like, then that's it. You will be the one to run the outcome of your conflict. So that's it. It's important that we as human should really find a way on how we can settle our dispute. And there are many ways. And And those are what we call as alternative dispute resolution.